In a bustling airport terminal in New York City, Ethan Reynolds adjusted the hood of his gray sweatshirt as he stepped into the crowd. The familiar sounds of announcements, rolling luggage wheels, and the excited chatter of travelers filled the air. Unlike his usual visits, where he was greeted as the CEO of Wingspan Airlines, today he was just another passenger, dressed in a simple hoodie, jeans, and worn sneakers. Ethan blended seamlessly into the sea of economy travelers. This wasn't a mere choice, it was part of a mission. Over the past few months, he had received a flood of complaints from passengers about elitism and unprofessional behavior among his airline staff, particularly in first class. While his executive team assured him that measures were being taken, Ethan wanted to see the reality for himself. As he navigated through the terminal, his heart raced, not from anxiety, but from the anticipation of observing the interactions among staff and passengers without the filter of his authority. Approaching Gate 12, he took stock of his surroundings. Families clustered near charging stations, business travelers worked on laptops, and flight attendants engaged in friendly banter. He noticed a young mother struggling with a stroller while her toddler reached for a toy that had rolled under a nearby seat. Ethan smiled to himself, mentally noting how staff interactions with passengers like her could reveal a lot about the airline's customer service philosophy. As he joined the boarding line for first class, he clutched his boarding pass, hoping to witness how the crew balanced catering to premium passengers while respecting those in economy. As boarding began, Ethan spotted a tall woman with a commanding presence managing the first-class boarding process. Her uniform was immaculate, and her name tag read Claire. She exuded authority, scrutinizing each boarding pass with an intensity that felt excessive. When it was Ethan's turn, he offered his pass with a polite smile. Claire glanced at him, then raised an eyebrow, her gaze sweeping over his casual attire before hardening. "This line is for first-class passengers," she declared, her voice loud enough for others to hear. Taken aback, Ethan replied, "I know. Here's my ticket." Claire's lips pressed into a thin line as she took the pass and examined it as if it were forged. She scanned it twice, then handed it back with a patronizing smile. "I think there's been a mistake. Upgrades like these are usually for promotions or charity events. Economy boarding is over there." She pointed to a crowded, noisy line. Ethan paused, surprised by her assumption. "There's no mistake. This is my seat." Claire's smile remained, but her tone grew icier. "I'm sure you believe that, sir, but this line is for paying first-class passengers." Murmurs began among the passengers behind him. A well-dressed woman in a sleek navy suit leaned forward. "He has a valid ticket," she interjected, irritation evident in her voice. "You should let him through." Claire turned to her, eyes narrowing. "I'll handle this, ma'am." She then focused back on Ethan. "I need you to step aside while I confirm this with a supervisor." Ethan didn't argue. He stepped aside, allowing others to board. The murmurs continued, some sympathetic, others amused. "He doesn't look like a first-class passenger," one man muttered to his wife. "Maybe it really was a mistake," another said. Inside, Ethan's mind raced. How often did this happen? How many people were treated this way because they didn't fit the expected mold? A few minutes later, a supervisor arrived, an older man with a warm demeanor. He glanced at Ethan's ticket and nodded. "This is valid," he said calmly. "You're good to go. My apologies for the delay." Claire's expression faltered momentarily before she plastered on a forced smile. "Of course," she said quickly, stepping aside. "Enjoy your flight." Ethan nodded politely and walked down the jet bridge, his thoughts swirling. He wasn't angry, but he couldn't shake the sting of the encounter. It wasn't about his ego, it was about what this revealed about the culture within his airline. If this was how a first-class passenger was treated based on assumptions, how were they treating others? Settling into his window seat, he took a deep breath, letting the hum of the cabin calm his thoughts. The first-class cabin was spacious and quiet, with plush seats arranged in a 2-to-2 configuration. A glass of champagne sat on the armrest next to a man in a tailored suit who adjusted his tie. As the cabin filled, Ethan observed Claire moving down the aisle, greeting each passenger with a warm smile and offering personalized service. When she reached Ethan's row, her demeanor shifted. She placed a prepackaged hot towel on his armrest without making eye contact, then moved on to the next passenger with exaggerated cheerfulness. Ethan took out a small notebook and began jotting down observations: first interaction, gate confrontation; second interaction, service disparity, tone shift noticeable with other passengers. He glanced at the flight attendants working alongside Claire. One, a younger woman with a genuine smile, seemed attentive, offering drinks and blankets without hesitation. The contrast was striking, and Ethan made another note: training issue or cultural problem? Further investigation needed. Barely underway, Ethan knew this experience would lead to change, not just for Claire, but for the airline as a whole. He leaned back, staring out the window as the plane taxied to the runway. For now, he would observe, but soon Claire and the company would understand the importance of treating every passenger with dignity, no matter their appearance. As the plane roared to life and ascended into the skies, Ethan's mind lingered on the gate incident. What troubled him most wasn't just Claire's dismissive behavior, but how many others had been judged unfairly. Staring out the window as the cityscape shrank below, he recalled the moments that mattered. When Claire reappeared with a tray of champagne flutes, her demeanor had shifted to a forced cheerfulness, a stark contrast to her earlier condescension. She offered a glass to the passenger beside Ethan, her smile wide and practiced. When she turned to Ethan, her eyes betrayed a flicker of discomfort. "Anything for you?" she asked curtly. "No, thank you," Ethan replied evenly. Claire nodded briskly and moved on, her demeanor brightening as she attended to other passengers. Ethan couldn't help but notice the disparity. Claire treated those who fit her mental image of a first-class passenger, well-dressed, confident, affluent, well, while her attitude towards him remained dismissive, even after his ticket had been confirmed. He noted, bias evident in service behavior, changes depending on perceived status. As the plane leveled out at cruising altitude, Ethan leaned back, absorbing the atmosphere. First class was luxurious, with spacious seats, elegant meals served on fine china, and attentive service. To the untrained eye, everything seemed perfect, but Ethan's trained eye picked up the cracks beneath the surface. During the flight, an opportunity presented itself. Claire and a fellow attendant, Sarah, paused in the galley, chatting quietly as they sorted meals onto trays. Ethan removed his earbuds, pretending to stretch, and tuned in. "Did you see the guy in 2B?" Claire remarked, her voice laced with disdain. "Which one?" Sarah replied. "The one in the hoodie. He doesn't belong here." Claire rolled her eyes. "Can you believe he's in first class? I swear they're giving upgrades to just anyone these days." Sarah hesitated. "Well, maybe he paid for the seat. You never know." "Doubt it," Claire said with a dry laugh. "Look at him. He doesn't even know what to do with the hot towel. It's embarrassing." Ethan's jaw tightened. He had remained silent during the gate incident, willing to let it slide for the sake of observation, but this was different. Claire's words weren't just dismissive, they reflected a deeper issue. He made another note: staff culture needs evaluation, train for empathy, not assumptions. As the first-class meal service began, Sarah arrived at Ethan's seat with his tray. "Here you go, sir," she said with a smile. "Would you like a refill on your drink?" "Yes, please," Ethan replied, meeting her gaze. "Thank you." As Sarah poured his drink, she leaned slightly closer. "I hope everything's been okay," she said quietly, as if she didn't want Claire to hear. Ethan studied her expression. There was genuine concern in her eyes, a quiet acknowledgement of the disparity in service. He nodded, offering a reassuring smile. "It's been enlightening," he said cryptically. Sarah blinked, unsure of how to interpret his words, but didn't press further. "Let me know if you need anything," she said before moving on. As the flight continued, Ethan reflected on the day's events. Claire's behavior was a symptom of a larger problem. Somewhere along the way, their values had been lost. He thought back to his early days as CEO when he had personally reviewed the airline's core values with his leadership team. They had promised to deliver not just a flight, but an experience, one where every passenger felt valued, regardless of where they sat. After the flight, Ethan waited until most passengers had disembarked before approaching Claire, who was tidying up the galley. "Excuse me," he said casually. Claire turned, her smile polite but wary. "Yes, sir. Is there something I can assist you with?" Ethan extended his hand. "I just wanted to thank you for the excellent service today. It's clear you care about your passengers." Claire blinked, surprised by the compliment. "Thank you," she said softly. "That means a lot." Ethan hesitated, then added, "Keep it up. You're making a real difference." As he walked away, Ethan felt a sense of closure. Claire's journey wasn't over, but she was on the right path, and so was Wingspan Airlines. Over the following months, the changes became evident. Passengers praised the airline on social media, sharing stories of exceptional service. Ethan received weekly updates on the progress of the new initiatives. One afternoon, Lisa walked into Ethan's office holding a letter from a passenger. It described an interaction with Claire, who had gone out of her way to comfort a nervous flyer. The passenger called her the kindest, most thoughtful flight attendant I've ever met. Ethan read the letter twice, a smile spreading across his face. "This," he said, holding up the letter, "is what success looks like." Wingspan Airlines wasn't just recovering, it was thriving. It all began with a single flight and a CEO who believed in the power of change.